When Donald Trump surrounded himself with yes men and cultists, he did so he could abuse power freely, that he could do whatever he wanted. He thought all of his plans would be successful with no pushback from those in his administration. But what he didn't consider is when you surround yourself with stupid people, they're unable to get the job done. And that is what has been proven out in Donald Trump's administration, with the latest example coming from the Vice President of the United States, who has blown up Donald Trump's biggest plan to try and steal the midterms, and is now leading Donald Trump to freak out so much that he is sicking the FBI on Republicans. We are going to get into it all and the crazy raid that just took place because of Donald Trump's anger and JD Vance's idiocy. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button, because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into JD Vance's screw up and how Donald Trump is using the FBI to go after Republicans now, we need to start with an update on what is blowing up Donald Trump's plan to steal the midterms, and that is an announcement from Governor Westmore in Maryland right here.
No, because I think I'm not going to stand for the blatant hypocrisy. Because, and the point that I was making, when people want to come bring smoke to Maryland, because we're saying that we want fair maps, but you sit on your hands and sit quiet and have nothing to say about Ohio, or have nothing to say about Missouri, or nothing to say about Texas. Literally, you are just parroting Donald Trump's talking points. And you know, and here's the thing. If you look at the quest for fair maps inside of the state of Maryland, it's actually a bipartisan push. We've had Republicans just yesterday come out and say they want to introduce legislation around fair maps. And so that is why I ordered a bipartisan redistricting advisory committee that is now going to actually listen to people, because our maps should not be decided in smoke-filled rooms, and definitely should not be decided because Donald Trump wants to call state legislatures and say, I need you to find me additional congressional seats. That's not how democracy should work. So Maryland will go through Maryland's process in a bipartisan fashion, and we will ensure, the work of our commission will ensure, that we will have fair maps come next November.
But Governor, the commission is bipartisan, but you have had some opposition from people in your own party. Democrat Bill Ferguson, the Maryland Senate president, has come out in the past month publicly and privately castigating efforts to do this, to engage in redistricting. He said the legal risks are too great for what is an uncertain outcome. What do you have to say to some of the concerns that efforts to redistrict are becoming a political litmus test to be involved in the conversation when it comes to looking ahead to the 2028 Democratic presidential primary?
Well, listen, I respect Bill Ferguson. I just could not disagree with him more on these legal risks. And also, it's not just me. It's also constitutional lawyers. It's also people like our Attorney General and our former Attorney General. It's also people like Jamie Raskin, who have also put out a public letter saying that there is an overestimation about what we consider to be the downside legal risk on this. And by asking the people, by actually saying that we want the people's input to make sure we have fair maps, I never find defending democracy to be a risky proposition. So where I differ on this is, you know, I think this moment requires fight. I think this moment requires urgency. I think this moment requires us stepping up and standing up and saying that Donald Trump should not be the one to determine what our democracy looks like.
Donald Trump really thought he was going to be able to get away with this, didn't he? He really believed that he could just decide that the midterms would be his, that he could just tell Republicans, get me a couple of seats, and it would happen overnight. And it's funny because the people who moved fastest to get Donald Trump those seats that he wanted, the Republicans in Texas, now might have screwed themselves, because the popular sentiment around Donald Trump's administration has shifted so much in even a couple of months. He is so much more unpopular that the maps that they drew, the really close red districts that they made, yeah, they actually might swing to Democrats. Texas Republicans could have effectively lost Donald Trump these midterms with the maps that they drew. And that is why Donald Trump has been looking for seats across the rest of the country, and he had his sights set for a while on Indiana, so much so that he sent JD Vance there in an article we got to read for the context before Donald Trump's loss and blow up. Vance visits amid impasse on Indiana redistricting. The White House has turned up the heat on Indiana Republicans to redraw the state's congressional map so that they can secure 2 more seats in the next year's midterms. Why it matters, redistricting talks appear to have stalled, prompting a 3rd round of visits with the Trump administration. So Donald Trump saw his redistricting push, his gerrymandering push, his election rigging push, and Indiana starting to wobble. It wasn't going too well, and he called in the big guns. He sent J.D. Vance, like anyone ever wants to hear from J.D. Vance. But of course, because Vance is a moron, these plans have crumbled, and Donald Trump was losing his mind on Truth Social. And it wasn't just another Trump freak out that everyone's going to move on. This one had real implications, and I want to get into how the FBI got involved after we see Trump's meltdown. Trump wrote on Truth Social very disappointed in Indiana State Senate Republicans led by Rhino Senators Rod Bray and Greg Goode for not wanting to redistrict their state, allowing the United States Congress to perhaps gain 2 more Republican seats. The Democrats have done redistricting for years, often illegally, and all other appropriate Republican states have done it. Because of these 2 politically correct type gentlemen and a few others, they could be depriving Republicans of a majority in the House, a very big deal. So Donald Trump says that essentially Republicans in the Indiana State Senate are the reason that democracy is going to implode and the Democrats will destroy the whole country. That's essentially what he's saying. And usually you would just say, well, that's just Trump freaking out. But MAGA, they really take that to heart, which is why this just happened. Indiana lawmaker is the victim of swatting after Trump criticized him over redistricting. An Indiana state senator was the victim of a swatting incident Sunday just hours after Donald Trump criticized him and other Republican lawmakers for not redrawing the state's congressional map, according to the lawmaker and the local sheriff. Vigo County Sheriff Derek Fell said in a post on his office's Facebook account that an email was sent to a police department advising harm had been done to persons inside a home, which was Goode's address. Attempts were initially unsuccessful to raise anyone at the residence, but ultimately contact was made with the persons inside the home. The statement said all persons were secure and unharmed. Investigation showed that this was a prank or a false email, also known as swatting. So Donald Trump's insane Truth Social meltdown at a Republican in Indiana because of J.D. Vance's failed attempt to get them to redistrict had his house almost raided by the FBI, threatened after he was swatted because Donald Trump is losing his mind knowing that he is going to lose the midterms. This is not just the abuse of power that Donald Trump wants to carry out, but this is the abuse of the power of fear that MAGA has used for so long. And it's why when Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is now talking about threats to her safety, says, our politics needs to be better than this. I can't believe what's happening to me right now. I kind of roll my eyes, and some of y'all might say, well, Jack, we have to, accept people's apology. Marjorie Taylor Greene, maybe she's changed. I don't really believe that she's changed. But also at the same time, Marjorie, if you're so upset about violence in our politics, so upset about people being threatened, 1, maybe apologize for January 6th, and 2, start calling out incidents like these when they're not just directed at you. If you only care about yourself, yeah, that makes sense, you're a Republican, but then you're not really apologizing for your past behavior. You're only upset that it has now affected you, and that's a whole bunch of bullshit. But this abuse of power, of course, is rampant through the Trump administration. And one example that I think has flown completely under the radar is having to do with Kristi Noem. And it's not that she's used our tax dollars to get more Botox, although I'm sure that'll come out at some point. It's an abuse of power no one's talking about, and you should really take a look.
Today, ProPublica published quite a scoop about Trump DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, that in any other era, I should say, would be a career-ending scandal. But to understand the pattern of corruption of this woman, we just have to zoom out just a little bit, just for a moment. Because since Noem took over DHS at the beginning of the year, she's become known for appearing to be more obsessed with putting on various costumes than doing her actual job. I mean, she donned a bulletproof vest just to talk to her own agents. She wore a Customs and Border Patrol uniform on Fox News. And of course, she is constantly, and I mean constantly, throwing on a cowboy hat and riding horses, always with plenty of cameras around to capture the moment. But Noem's apparent obsession with image actually goes much further than just putting on costumes, because she has directed more than 200 million taxpayer dollars into TV ads to promote her work at DHS. And just to put it in context, that is nearly twice what DHS spent on ads altogether in all of last year. And the content of those ads have already been a scandal kind of in and of themselves.
I'm Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. Thank you, President Donald J. Trump, for securing our border.
And if you are wondering who exactly the target audience is for that, DHS spent $30,000 to run that ad, the one I just showed you, specifically in the ad market where Mar-a-Lago is. Now, as much as spending tens of thousands of dollars to make sure your ad plays on the TV near the president is a bizarre waste of taxpayer money, $30,000, it turns out, is a drop in the bucket compared to the more than $200 million DHS has spent this year making and airing ads. And the rest of that money is where the story gets truly bonkers. I mean, since March, we have known that DHS skipped the normal competitive bidding process when giving out the contracts to make and air these ads. DHS claimed that because Trump declared an emergency at the southern border, they didn't have to waste time getting competitive bids. And that brings me to the first part of ProPublica's big scoop today. Because it turns out that the majority of that no-bid contract money, 143 million taxpayer dollars, went to this kind of mysterious LLC in Delaware. An LLC that was created just days before it got that no-bid contract, just days. And the man who owns the home that LLC lists as its address did not respond to ProPublica's questions. Now, when asked why the agency chose that LLC, DHS said, quote, "The results speak for themselves," and then proceeded to claim that Trump has made the border the most secure it has been in American history. Not exactly answering the question. So DHS gave a $143 million no-bid contract to a brand new LLC that no one seems to know anything about. That is obviously a scandal enough to begin with. Then there's this. This is an ad Kristi Noem shot on October 2nd, which, by the way, was the second day of the government shutdown. So while hundreds of thousands of federal workers went without pay, including the nearly 50,000 TSA workers that work under Noem, Noem donned a cowboy hat and had a production company film her riding horseback with buffalo.
The abuses of power are everywhere, and they are unsurprising, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't call them out every single day. We are going to on this show, even though that I am sick right now and I sound terrible. I hope y'all can endure my kind of stuffy nose sounding voice. I'm going to try to persevere because we have important news to cover and we have bullshit to call out. And if you want to support us doing that on this show, especially because I'm sick, how could you not support while I'm sick? You can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you, even with a stuffy nose. And until next time, I'll see you soon.